So, Jason, I think I've been starting to have, like, fucked up dreams because of the amount that I've been working on the website these days.
Oh boy. Is this the one where you put Vegemite all over your balls and walk into the retirement home?
No. That was last week. This is new.
Oh, okay.
But it's weird because they all seem to involve me being in these really perilous situations. Like, I had a dream last night where it was like I was a kid again, and my dad had kidnapped me and my sister, and were like holding us like in the house. We could never leave the house type of thing. And it was like one of those, you read those, we've seen a few of those stories where like some dude in Europe somewhere will like kidnap a 14-year-old girl and then just like keep her in his basement for years. Except that it was weird because it wasn't like a weird sex thing. It was just like, couldn't leave the house.
Okay. Truth time.
Uh-huh.
No one's ever kidnapping you.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well,
That's never going to happen.
Damn it! But what about all my what about all my video game knowledge? Somebody wants to chain me into the up in their basement and make me play Dark Souls, like, you know, tell them where they're going wrong. And I mean, are you just
no one is going to kidnap you to make you play Dark Souls because apparently you play it like a faggot noob.
Well, you know, it's always been a dream of mine, Jason, with this new internet fame that I have, to get into a misery situation where I get in a car accident and then some big Kathy Bates lady breaks my ankles and makes me play PlayStation 4 games for a long time. Except that I don't know if I'd be as keen to escape. That she'd be like, right there with you for...
I can't. You know, I'm going to just lay around and... Well, I wasn't using those feet anyway. That's fine. That's fine.
I don't understand. Are you going to bring me, like, food and stuff? Well,
Can I get Whataburger? Will you bring me some Whataburger?
Bring me some more Whataburger. And then I'm just going to be like Brian Wilson. I'm going to be like too fat to get out of my bed with the TV over me playing video games. I review games for a living. Some kind of weird Misery meets Brian Wilson meets Harry Knowles kind of.
Yeah. It'll be, you're going to get to a point and the lady who abducted you is going to be, it'll be a turnabout and she'll be like, no, you can go. You could have left a long time ago. Please, just go.
I want my freedom. The door is open. Just get the fuck out of here.
Yes.
It's not worth it anymore.
Did you check the mail yet? Has my Gamefly come in yet?
Oh, come on. Have you updated Steam for me? You're supposed to do that while I was pooping. And now and then of course in my brain that just segues into, then I could be the Baron Harkonnen of video games. I could run the video game website that's all devious and conniving, and then you could be the Sting that goes out and kills people for me.
You haven't really thought this through, have you?
Not really. I'm kind of going with it.
All right, just checking. Because, Baron Harkonnen, not something a lot of people strive for.
Hey, man, he didn't ever have to stand up. You know, he was able to float around. I've always wanted to fly like Superman, and if I got to be a big fat dude, well,
That's not really the last son of Krypton type flying. You want to have like boils and float and play PS4 and have your ankles smashed by where. So you were having weird dreams. Have there been more weird dreams? We're off track here.
Yeah,
this is weird.
Welcome everybody to Rage Select. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jason.
There've been a few weird ones. I had one where I was like an undercover government agent in some kind of like new IR, like trying to infiltrate some kind of like new IRA, some kind of like futuristic IRA cell, except that like you and a bunch of people from the website were like all members of this, and then you guys found out and totally shanked me. But I still had enough power before I died to shank all of you guys. And then I died and I went to heaven and God was a dog. And he said, you did a really good job and patted me on the head. And then I went,
Jesus. What?
I don't know. Like 90% of the time, I don't even ever remember my dreams. And just recently, I've been having these really strange dreams where when I wake up, I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I used to have dreams where it's like, oh, well, I didn't get my work done. And oh, shit, I'm going to get fired. Things like that. But now it's just like, we've gone full on David Lynch, man. Just fucking whatever.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, and also on an unrelated note, I ate those mushrooms that I found growing in my backyard.
I'm not eating any mushrooms again after playing The Last of Us. I'm not eating a mushroom ever again. I'm just worried I'm going to get that fucking Goomba face shit they got going on in that game and be like, ah!
A clicker. That's going to make the podcast really interesting.
Yeah. When I just sit over here, click, 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 click,
Yeah.
click,
Shrieking. And I'll just talk to you like you're speaking English.
Well, I know. Okay, so I've been having weird dreams, but you know what? How have you been, Jason? I see you all the time, but still, tell the good people, how have you been?
Yeah, just busy, man. It's work and work and work and more work and nonstop. Because I've got like lots of jobs and projects and stuff like that. You know, the day job and scripts and blah blah blah, and then. Yeah, and then this shit, like, every day.
Well, that's
like,
true.
Every day.
You know what? Before we go on, I feel like Jason and I have been talking about this, too. We just want to address something to you, the fans and listeners. So there have been a lot of you who have been out there like, oh, my God, you guys were just being held back before. Like, you putting out so much content now, and I don't want to urinate in your Cheerios, but, like... This pace cannot continue.
No, the center cannot hold.
After RTX and some of this stuff has been all rolled out, we start to get down to the business of making money, which we don't really do right now. We're going to probably go back to just like one video a day. There's been a weird perfect storm of events where like we pre-recorded, like last week we pre-recorded the Gunslinger before we went to E3, but then I had problems while I was at E3 and I couldn't get those videos up, so we had extra videos and we just decided to put them up. But I wouldn't be looking for 12 videos a week from here on out. And I know that some people are going to be like, that's bullshit, man. Sleep is for the weak and sissies, but
yeah, sorry guys, we can't.
Yeah.
We will die. Maybe at each other's hands.
It's very possible. It's entirely possible. I mean, there have been days, it's funny how there have been days where we've been like, all right, well, I'll see you, Jason, tomorrow. I'll hit you up. We'll totally record that review. And then I wake up that day and I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that. No, fuck that. I'm going to watch season 3 of Game of Thrones again and play some video games that I'm not reviewing just because I need a day where I'm not doing any of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But in more lighthearted news, I have also discovered, I don't know if you've realized this, Jason, but I have superpowers.
Oh?
Yes. I have discovered I'm going to make a new Justice League, and we're going to have the worst superpowers. My superpower that I discovered last week is that I have the power to inaccurately predict what's going to happen with video game consoles with like 100% accuracy. Like,
this sounds dubiously non-powerful.
I didn't ever say it was a useful power. It's just a power. It's because before we went into E3 and I'm like, there's no way the PlayStation's not going to be doing the same thing that Xbox they're totally doing that. And then just recently, there's no way Microsoft has built that DRM into their console. There's no way they could take it out. Oh, fuck you, Don Matrick.
And then they take it out.
I'm kind of convinced that actually Don Matrick and Jack Tretton, they're very big fans of our website, and they're just like, dude, let's just listen to his podcast, and whatever he says, we'll just do the opposite, make him look like a fucking like stupid asshole.
Yeah, that whole them being fans thing. That's I'm gonna go with unlikely.
No, you don't think Jack Tretton is a fan of Rage Select?
No, probably not.
But Don Matrick, Donnie M has to be on Rage Select. I need to look through the user database and see if he's a registered user.
No. Matrick is in Steve Ballmer's storage shed. And Ballmer goes out there with gardening tools and waterboards him and shit. And then, he also has Matrick's family at an undisclosed location. And he's at like a black site somewhere in like, the ices of Denmark or something.
Or just like the suburb of Redmond or of Seattle. Like his family is somewhere in Yakima, but nobody can find him. Nobody can find him over there.
And no one ever will. And every day Matrick comes on, I have a very serious and crafted message to post for everyone. We've heard your complaints. I really fucked up. I fucked up so bad.
I mean, I didn't actually put it on our list of news to talk about, but before, like 2 days before the press release that they were going to ditch the DRM, which we'll get to in just a second, they had another release that was like, it was the most, it was one of, I mean, I don't know how Magic keeps getting away with doing this stuff, but it was like $500. You're really getting too much value in your Xbox One for $500. Like,
really?
You see all this stuff that we're giving to you, like, seriously, like $500 is, I wouldn't even buy it if it was less than $500 because that would mean that it was garbage, you know? It was just really just very self-congratulating, just like, it's the best.
We're doing you a fucking favor.
Yeah, I don't even know how you could even complain about $500. Look, do you not see this camera that watches you when you beat off? Like, $500 seems like a very cheap price to pay for that. And then like 3 days later, they were like, well, hey, everybody. Yeah, so that thing, we're not doing it anymore. So,
yeah.
For any of you guys who haven't heard, the Xbox One is basically rolling back all their nonsense to operate just like the PlayStation 4, just like the current Xbox, just like the current PS3. You basically put the disc in and you play off the disc. And you can take the disc over to your friend's house and they can play off the disc. You could sell used games. You could buy all that stuff. They also, I believe, check me on this, Jason, you can play offline Xbox One. It does not require you to check in every 24 hours like it did before.
Correct. That was a big thing for me. That was one of the things I hated about it. The always on connect, as Penny Arcade put it, that is non-fucking negotiable.
Yeah. I really like this last statement in their press conference where they say, we appreciate your passion, support, and willingness to challenge the assumptions of digital licensing and connectivity. I like that. It's like, you just, behind that, you could see some angry guy writing this, just like, you fucking jerk, you fucking cockback internet sons of bitches, fuck you.
We know what's good for you because we're Microsoft.
Yeah. Which, you know, it's funny because now, I mean, all right, you know, there's obviously going to be more information as we get closer, but I mean, is it just a more expensive PlayStation 4 now? I mean, I guess it's nice in at least, I mean, because there was, after they made this announcement, there were news stories. I was looking at it on a news site, and like almost directly after this news story, there were these back-to-back news stories. One was GameFly going like, hey, Microsoft, we really appreciate that you've made the right choice listening to people so that we don't have to lose a big chunk of the market. The other was GameStop going, Microsoft, we think you're being very sensible today, and we'd just like to thank you for being flexible on this. And it was just like, well, yeah, duh. But I don't know. You know, the thing is that I swear to God there was stuff before this announcement where Microsoft was saying this stuff is built into the architecture. Like, it's part of the console. And I
can't remember the guy who said that, but he said something to the effect of, this is built around DRM. We can't just flip the switch. And then a few days later, he's like, okay, we'll flip the switch.
I just have this mental image of him, like, doing an interview for a news station, standing in front of a big switch that says DRM, and it's switched to on. He's like, there is no switch. What is this switch you guys keep talking about? I don't know, though. You know what? It's become clear, obviously, that I can't predict worth a shit. But Jason, you've got a pretty decent track record up until now. What do you think? Do you think this is going to repair enough of the kind of the bad will from the whole DRM debacle to put the Xbox One kind of on a more even keel? I mean, I think it's going to be easier to sell this to people who already have a 360 if you could just say to them, it works like a 360.
Yeah, it's. I think they're going to be fine in the long run now. Because really the whole the vocal segment of the internet was relatively small, very loud, but not something that was going to really deliver a killing blow to them. Now, had the average Joe who doesn't read up on this and stuff like that bought one of these Xbox Ones and been boned by
Xbone, I get it.
by the 24-hour check-in thing.
Yeah.
That would have been a big backlash because I could totally see the majority of people being completely unaware of all this and then getting screwed by it and then being completely pissed when they got home.
Actually,
after they tried to, I don't know, share a game or, take it on vacation with them where they wouldn't have internet access or something like that. I think that was going to be a big snafu.
Yeah, I can totally see that. But it's actually funny that you mention the vocal, kind of the vocal minority on the internet for this sort of thing, because when this was announced, I was actually reading through like forum comments in a few different places about it. And it just goes to show you that there is a group of people in favor of everything, because there was this sentiment that I was seeing floating around places like Kotaku in the comments where people were like, oh, well, this is going to be the future, but now I guess it's just a fucking Xbox with better graphics, and I don't even know why. I'm just going to fuck you guys. I'm just going to buy a PC now. I was really looking forward to being able to share my games with all 12 of my children so that we can all play Call of Duty at the same time or whatever. But I mean, it was a sort of thing where some of the stuff that they had messaged about the family plans and the user having your library of games you could kind of take with you everywhere that you went, where there were apparently people who were really, really, really on board with that. And they were like, this is the future of video games. And when they turned that off, it was just like, fine.
But did they? I mean, did they turn it off completely? I mean, you still might be able to do that. I don't remember seeing anything specifically about that.
No. It's in the statement. It says these changes will...
Part and parcel.
Yeah, I think these changes will impact some of the scenarios we previously announced for Xbox One. The sharing of games will work as it does today. You will simply share the disc. Downloaded titles cannot be shared or resold. Also, similar to today, playing disc-based games will require that the disc be in the tray. So it seems like a lot of that stuff is going to, I don't know, maybe it'll be the sort of thing where instead of forcing the issue like they were trying to before, we'll see a more gradual switch where they'll start with this stuff, but then start, maybe a year into the life cycle when they've got a base, they'll roll out and say, hey, we now have this like digital trade-in policy where you can trade your games to the digital version of GameStop for some sort of credit towards Xbox Live, a certain number of points that you can, like if you bought the latest episodes of The Walking Dead or whatever, that if you want to, you can kind of virtually sell that back for a certain amount of money. I honestly think that,
that's coming. I think
it is. Yeah,
it's really it's going to be inevitable. But I don't know, the way Microsoft presented it was like, well, this is what we're doing, so fucking deal with it.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody the other night where I said that if they had announced this, if they had said that, if they had outlined the Xbox One, which also one of the other things that I was thinking about today is like, that shit was fucking confusing. Like, it was just, you could do this, but then this, but not this, but then you got this one thing that, like, it was very difficult. Like, it was the sort of thing where I was looking over it kind of going like, how exactly is this going to work again? Like, who are my family? And you talk about digital game library. Does that mean I get to stream it off of a cloud, or do I have to download it? Because if it's like, well, we added this to your virtual game library, so you could totally play it at a friend's house. You just have to go over and start downloading it for 6 hours, and then you could totally play it over there. But if Microsoft had come out and said, here's all these restrictions or whatever, but guess what? All the games are going to be $50, not $60. Like, that would have been an incentive to say, okay, well, if you have people that are worried about not being able to buy used games at a discounted price, if you had said, like, we want you to be in this we want you to be playing in this new DRM locked digital always on kind of like landscape, and the way that we're going to entice you, the way that we're going to get you in here is we're going to give you back like direct value for you buying into this proposition.
Right. And this is going to happen, right? I mean, but there are things that need to happen before it does. And a lot of that is the global and especially the North American infrastructure of the internet needs to improve dramatically before everything goes digital.
I've always seen it as like establishing the biggest thing that I think needs to happen right now, and Sony has been doing this. You can buy most of the games that come out day and date on the PlayStation Network the same day you can in the store. They already kind of have that. They're doing the more of a passive approach. But the main thing that I think that both Sony and Microsoft need to do if they want to, and Sony does this a little bit better than Microsoft does, but that they need to do if they really want to get people to buy into this system, is they need to establish, like Steam has, that they're not going to keep the price of the game artificially inflated forever. That if you go to buy a 3-year-old game on demand off of the Xbox 360, it should be like $20, or they should have a sale like Steam does every week, or just something to show that, because that's, I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, that's the thing that we're all really worried about, is that you're going to get rid of discs, and because you're going to be tied into the ecosystem that this one company controlled, that they're never going to give you a break on how much the games are. It's going to be fucking $60 for the entire life of that system. And they're never going to drop the price because they're just like, well, we don't have to. We control the price, and you have no other place to go to get this except for our landscape. So if they could just build some trust, kind of like Steam has, with sales and giving people like a reason and an incentive to buy the stuff digitally instead of the disc, then they might be able to build up enough goodwill that if they did something like this, that everybody wasn't just like, burn it all.
Yes. And again, they didn't really attempt to do any damage control. They were so arrogant that they probably never planned for any sort of backlash. They were doing the same thing that they did with with the Office ecosystem and with Windows, and like, well, we're Microsoft, we do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And so Matrick came off as exceedingly arrogant, especially when he said, well, we do have something you can buy if you don't have internet, and that's called the 360. Sick burn.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is a good point, is that they never, and I think it's one of the reasons why Sony came off so much better in their conferences, because when Sony came out there at their E3 press conference, like, they were very much directly addressing the people who had been up in arms and saying, like, we have listened, and this is what's happening. We're going to give you the same, you guys don't want to change? That's fine. Here, we're not going to change. Whereas with Microsoft, it just kept being this weird, like, it's like we talked about in previous podcasts. Like, how the fuck can you guys not be spinning this?
Yeah.
Everybody from politicians to newsmakers, game companies, corporations, everybody down the board has a set of media PR people who will get out there to try to spin this and say, even if you're not willing to give any concession to the consumer, just to be like, look, this is the future, and we are moving ahead, and everything's going to be here eventually anyway, and we're going to be the first ones out there, and we're going to work with you and make this blah, 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 blah. But they never did. It was mostly just like,
well, let's, I don't know, send Don out there so they can tell them they're stupid. And, this is a paradigm shift. You can't force that. This is the way that, this is trying to change the way that people, the way people have done things for a long, long time. And it may, in the end up being much better. But you trying to just, well, you're dumb and this is what we're going to do. That doesn't work.
Well,
but you have to hold people's hands.
But the thing that's weird about it is that, I mean, what I was thinking about the other day is that Microsoft does that. Look at Windows 8.
Yep.
Look at Windows 8. Like, who the fuck is, I look at Windows 8 and go, oh God, that's fucking awful. That's terrible.
This is endemic to their corporate culture, and I know people who have worked at relatively high levels at Microsoft. You might as well. And he said, yeah, that's the way it is. They're arrogant, they're entrenched in their horrible behaviors, and they treat their people like shit, and that flows down to the customers.
No, I used to work at Microsoft.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I saw this stuff all the time where you would go into these boardrooms and there'd be like, okay, so here we go. We are moving forward into the future, and we're going to give people this new thing, and this is going to be the way that people do it, because they have been operating at, on the PC side with Windows. They've been operating unopposed. I mean, there's Linux, there's Apple, there's other options, but for the vast majority of people who buy PCs, they have Windows on their PC. They've used it. They don't want to learn something new. They totally use it. So Microsoft has been able in that like headspace to get away with dictating what you do.
Yes.
And then I feel like, in the first Xbox, I was about to say Xbox One, the first Xbox, and then the Xbox 360, that they were kind of like the scrappy underdog and they had to fight for it. But now that they have this, a pretty big fan base and a fairly decent market share, they feel like they could just be like, well, now we're going to tell you how you're going to play games, and that there are a lot of people out there who are just like, no, there's still the PC. Even if all this shit goes and to fuck, there's still the PC.
Right.
Like, we'll all just go back to where we were, at the beginning when it was, the NES and the Master System, and then the PC was where all the super hot shit was going down. We'll just all go back there. Be like, fuck it. We'll play Steam Indies from now on, and the consoles can all go fuck themselves. You guys had a good 20-year run, and now we're just like, nope, no more.
Yeah. I don't know, the way they're doing things or the way Microsoft is attempting to do things, a lot of this stuff just is not sustainable. And we've talked about this before, there's just so many, this is not an unbreakable industry. And in some ways, there are some very fragile support structures there. And a lot of that is if you pull this shit, people might very well revolt. If you keep trying to spend, $300 million on a title, shit's going to fall apart. And we're going to see things go back, make a huge shift back to primitive yet inventive indie games.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. It's like you got to keep your finger on the pulse. Not that I'm, deeply involved in the industry, but you see some stuff that just doesn't make sense, And this was one of them, trying to force this shift on people and just saying, yeah, well, this is how it's going to be. Fuck you.
Yeah. And, and hey, I like this because, to be honest, be super brutally honest with you, Jason. I wish Microsoft would have stuck to their guns because I really wanted to see how that shit was going to play out. Because we talk about the vocal minority of people, a lot of people on the internet who get out there and they're pitchforks and torches and stuff like that. But I was really kind of curious to see when the shit actually came out, whether those people represented a large enough group of people to actually hurt the Xbox launch, as opposed, if it was going to be very much reversed of the last time these consoles came out, where you could buy a PlayStation, or you go to any Best Buy and there'll be a bunch of Xbox Ones on the shelf, and the PS4 is sold out every time they do a run type of thing. But I don't know, it's closer. It's obviously a closer race now. I just don't know if you can convince people that that's paying $100 more for a Kinect. I guess at this point you're paying $100 more for the Kinect and you're paying for the exclusives.
Yeah, and guess what? Don't want the fucking Kinect. Don't want it.
Who does? This is to you, the listeners. I want somebody to come into this comments and tell me that you're a big fan of the Kinect, because I kind of give less of a shit about it personally.
And leave your address.
And you may win a prize, a visit to your house from Jason Murphy.
Yeah, it's going to be a pillowcase full of padlocks, and we're going to have a party.
I wouldn't answer the door if you see Jason outside of your house. I'm just saying. So we got a couple other news things here real fast. It occurred to me that I don't think we ever actually addressed the fact that in the midst of all the PlayStation ball licking that was going on, they also announced that you were going to have PlayStation Plus for multiplayer from here on out, that they are gating at least the multiplayer behind the PlayStation Plus membership. To be honest, I don't know, Jason, you don't have PlayStation Plus membership, right?
Right. I do not.
I love that shit.
But I am used to paying for online access with my Xbox Gold. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this isn't something that I really have a beef with.
See, I don't know. I thought that it was, I think that if I don't necessarily think that you or I are the people to talk to about this in some ways, because neither of us are really super obsessed with multiplayer for video games. But what I will say is that if PlayStation Plus keeps up the same, I think that the most brilliant thing about PlayStation Plus is that it gives you access to cloud storage. It gives you access to automatic updates. It'll download stuff when, it'll boot up in the middle of the night and download all the things you had in your queue and then turn itself off. And that's all pretty cool and all. But the thing that I love more than anything about PlayStation Plus are these free games that come out where they're like, hey, Saints Row, totally free this month. And you're just like, what? Get it.
Yeah,
get it.
That's pretty amazing. And Microsoft never does that. Not that I've seen anyway.
I think they might have had a couple of things that the thing is that I was also relate to the Xbox 360 party because I didn't have one for a long time. But I understand that, like, for them, it seemed like, for a gamer, it seemed like the reason that you wanted to have the Xbox Gold subscription, as opposed outside of multiplayer, was that they would have demos that you could only get. They were time sensitive. It was like you had to wait a couple weeks for the demo to go public, but for like a couple of weeks you couldn't download this one demo unless you had Xbox Gold. I seem to remember that happening.
Oh yeah, that happened a few times. Yeah,
but I mean, when I first got my Xbox, I got it for reviewing video games. I bought one for Gears of War 3. Like, I didn't have one before then. And I've gone back and played some of the games I was interested in playing, but there was a long time where I was very much just a Sony fanboy because I didn't have to not be, honestly.
Right.
I mean, I was the very much, like, I understand sometimes when you see people they're just desperately trying to defend. Like, I saw some of the Xbox One stuff where you see these people desperately trying to find anything to justify what the Xbox One was doing. And I'm like, that used to be me. That used to be me when the PlayStation 3 came out. And I was like, yeah, you all the bros on Xbox One, but does it play Blu-rays? I like to watch Blu-rays and shit. And yeah, it's more expensive, but look at it's got Metal Gear on it and stuff. You can't even get that anywhere. This dumb, just feces just flowing out of your mouth. That it's crap. You know that you're just talking shit.
And all this hatred and bile. I'm like, fine, you like this one better. Okay. Who cares? Shut the fuck up.
Which, eventually I did, and I love my 360 now. In fact, I was a little bit bummed out after the conferences, when it became obvious that for this show, we were probably going to be sticking to the PlayStation 4 because it would be harder for us to get as many of the games as that we look at if we had to be hooked up to this draconian DRM that they had on the Xbox One. Now, it's just kind of a matter of the fact that it's $100 cheaper to buy a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
And we don't have very much money.
Yeah, well, I mean, Xbox is going to have a ton of exclusives, and they were trying to lead with that, So it's good that we're not going to have to grumble through dealing with their shit to cover those games.
Very true. Very, very true. All right, I got a couple more news items here. I got one that's relatively small, and then one that actually is kind of just directly related to what we were just talking about. First, it's been now confirmed for all three platforms that games are going to be $60 for this generation. I don't really know. We had a couple people on the website and through my email who kept sending me emails talking about, like, oh, they're all going to be $99, but that was just a placeholder bullshit that Amazon put up because they always will let you pre-order for too much money and then refund you down to what the actual cost is, rather than get caught in a position where you pre-purchase something and then it ends up being more expensive and they have to come to you and say, well, yeah, you need to give us like $20 more if you want that type of thing. But yeah, I honestly don't think that we're in a position where the game companies could. I think that if we had that shift like we had talked about before, about that what used to be the normal console generational shift, where if every new game that was coming out looked like 1,000,000 times better than what they look like right now, they might be able to bump it up to 70 and be like, man, it's the fucking future, bro. Like, deal with it.
Yeah.
But it's good news. $60 is a decent enough price point. I
want them to start justifying things like just by saying, it's the future, bro.
It's totally the future, man.
Yeah.
You're not looking around? Like, look at this shit. You see how thin your TV is? I was actually thinking about that the other day, Jason. I was looking at how thin my TV was, and I was like, oh, man, you remember when TVs used to weigh like 400 pounds and they sucked?
Yeah.
Like, they were really heavy and they were really shitty, and and then they looked like crap.
In 1998, I purchased a 21-inch Sony Trinitron CRT. It was 65 pounds.
Yep. I had a 19-inch ViewMaster ViewSonic monitor that I got that was like, I used to drag. It used to be the sort of thing where going to a LAN party was difficult because, you had to get like 3 people to get that. Well, not 3 people, but you drag your 19-inch monitor up 3 flights of stairs to your friend's apartment, and you're just like, fuck you, man, I'm never coming over here again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would have things set up in my room a certain way, and then I would get like a new piece of furniture or something. Mm-hmm. and I would think, okay, I need to reorganize the room, and then I'd look over that monitor and say, or I can just put this furniture in a different room, or I can take it back. Yeah. Because I'm not moving that fucking monitor again.
I think I want to do, you know what I want? I want the next generation to be able to experience my physical pain. I want to do a Kickstarter, and we're going to take like a 60-inch like plasma screen, LED screen, and then I want to put it inside of one of those old 1960s like wooden cabinets that weigh like 250 pounds. And make it so that you can't actually change any of the channels with like a on-screen display. You have to use one of the old knob clickers and go tick, 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 tick. And then I'm going to sell them for like $2,000 a piece to people who are like, I remember those. Ha ha! I will pay $2,000 for that because I'm stupid.
They have these old retro TVs that I'm kind of fixated with. It's called the Predicta.
Ooh, spell that. I want to look it up.
Predicta.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at them, you know, they're just so amazing. And I want one of these, and I think they have started making them with flat screens.
Uh-huh.
But they are still very boutique. Allison was actually going to order one for me.
Mm-hmm.
They're super fucking expensive.
Really?
Yeah, she was going to order one for me a while back. But if you look on their page, it's all CRT stuff because that's how they were originally made. But I think she contacted them and said, "Well, we're not taking any orders anymore. They're just they just do them as they can apparently. But they had started making them with the like flat screens." Uh-huh. But man, I want one of these so bad.
I love the names of them: the Meteor, the Pedestal, the Debutante,
yeah,
the Chalet.
Oh, yeah. If you go to Predicta.com, you can see just a bunch of them, and I love those. Looks like something that would be in the Jetsons' place, but yeah, it was right. You know, they're. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to order a CRT right now, and apparently they have started making them with an LCD, but I don't know exactly how that would look. you know,
if you didn't, I mean, you know, you could. I don't know. It's funny because I didn't even realize this was a problem until I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about arcade games and how hard it is to get the CRTs when the CRT in your arcade game goes out. Like if you buy one,
yeah,
CRTs are apparently really difficult to find. And you know, I don't know. It's weird because it was only 10 years ago, maybe like 2003. I still had like a big CRT TV and a CRT monitor.
Oh yeah.
Back in those days.
I had this is a little different, but for the longest time, and I just got rid of it like less than a year ago, an old 61-inch rear projection Sony.
Mm-hmm.
It was on wheels.
Well, it had to be. You need a fucking forklift to move that thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really not that long ago, but apparently that is one of the problems with having an arcade, you know, like an actual, like an arcade box in your home, which I keep kind of toying with the idea of getting one, but I never.
I really want one. I really, really want one. But the problem is that I run into this mental issue of like, I would like to get one that was like, had multiple games in it because I don't want to have more than one arcade cabinet in my house. But then there's that other part of me that goes, that's such a cop-out, man. Just like devote yourself, get one, you know. But then it's like,
yeah,
what game do you get? Like, do I want Smash TV to be the one game that I have and I played it so much that I'm fucking sick of Smash TV now? Or, you know,
yeah, I know you want like the vintage notion of it, but then you realize, well, I can just get one, gut it, put a PC in there,
mm-hmm.
and have all of the games,
mm-hmm.
like all of them, and that's pretty tempting.
But then, you know, I know you and I know your proclivities, but like half of the idea of getting a game cabinet like that is the awesome art on the side. Like
is
the old awesome stuff, and you know, have that thing plugged in, and
yeah,
fuck, I want one.
And then there's, well, I kind of want a sit down version, like a sit down Star Wars, you know, or Even
I
better.
think you're talking about like cocktail table.
Well, that's another one. That's something I have seriously considered buying. There was one that I almost grabbed a few years ago. I was really considering. I think it was like Sinistar Cocktail or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. I don't even know if that one was released on Cocktail. I can't remember, but this was 4 or 5 years ago, and I was really close to buying it because I would love to have a cocktail video game table.
Yeah,
but I never have been able to pull the trigger because that's a commitment. It's like that's one game, and I've seen people buy an arcade game and they're in love with it for a few weeks, and then it's like, oh yeah, that fucking thing. Okay.
Or other people come over to your house and they're like, "What? You've got a fucking stand-up arcade game?" And they're like, "It's the worst thing I ever did my entire life. I can't move it.
It's an albatross.
It's broken. I don't know how to fix it, and like it smells bad because it was in an arcade where you could smoke for 30 years." It's just shit, man. It smells like the skating rink and sadness now. All right, well, that's enough for that reminiscing. The last thing on this list, which I actually think I didn't actually even know about this until I started going over the news. Super interesting. Apparently, there's a beta client for Steam that people have been digging into that looks like Steam might be getting ready to roll out some kind of program to let you share your Steam games with other people on Steam.
Oh, and see, your Steam identity is pretty much out there, so you're going to start getting hit up a lot.
Well, that's the thing.
Hey, Jeff, do you want to be friends on here and maybe we can share games and stuff?
Well, the thing is that
Fuck
it's
off.
like from this article that I read, it sounds like they have a sort of thing where it's like, and it may even be the sort of thing that requires Steam to be online to be able to do. Like, I don't necessarily think that is like an unjustified thing. Like, if Steam is going to let you share these games, saying that you have to be online so we can make sure that, every single person that you know isn't playing the same game all at the same time, that is not unreasonable. But from the article, one of the descriptions that they have says that, like, okay, so say I'm playing a game, and then you decide that you want to play the same game on Steam, and you open it up, and then it's going to pop up a thing on my game that says, hey, Jason's playing this game. Do you want to quit and let him play it, or do you want to keep playing it and tell him to go fuck himself? And then I say, go fuck yourself, Jason. I'm playing this. And then it sends you back this thing that says, Jeff said go fuck yourself, and then you're done. But what I really like about it, though, is the idea of having, because you see my Steam library. It's fucking retarded.
It really is. You have a problem.
I do. I really do. But I would really like to be able to let other people get access to that, especially if it's the sort of thing where it's like, I've got games in my Steam library that I've played and I've beaten and I'm done with them. And if I was to say, like, hey, Jason, I just got done with the Swapper. Why don't you get it and play it? And I'm going to play Skyrim off my Steam account for a while. So I'm playing Skyrim and you're just like, yeah, that Swapper thing seemed pretty cool. Let me boop, boop, boop. And then you can just jump in and play the Swapper. Like, that would be very cool. That would be a very cool way of Steam to kind of buck this trend that we seem to be seeing of, like, no, everybody must buy a copy. Everyone must buy one copy. And if you don't, you're a thief and a pirate and a dirty fucking whore.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like, there's a certain amount of this stuff where it's like, Jason, you're never going to buy the Swapper.
Right.
It's $9, but you're never going to buy it because you got too many other things. And it's like, maybe you'd like to try it out, but fucking when do you have the time? Whereas if I was able to say, hey, why don't you play this? You're my friend on Steam. You got access to my library. Just load it up. What the fuck? Who cares? Then you could play a video game that you wouldn't normally have played, which is good for fucking everybody. Because then maybe the next time that company puts out a game, you're like, oh man, the Swapper was great. I want to play whatever those guys come up with next. I don't know.
Yeah, that, I don't know. I mean, what's in it for them?
For who?
For the publisher.
Oh, for the publisher?
Yeah.
Well, see, here's the thing, is that this has been something that seems to be coming up more and more often recently of what's in it for the publisher. And the way that I feel is that it's kind of like Steam sales. It's kind of like all of this stuff, Steam sales, used game sales and stuff. You say, what's in it? So let's take, I don't know, let's name a Steam game. Skyrim, let's say I've got Skyrim. And it's been this long and you've never bought Skyrim and you're like, man, I've heard a lot about that. I'd like to play that game on Steam. This is the argument that I get into in my head is this is a thing you hear a lot from advocates of piracy that I'm not really a super big fan of that, but it does have a certain amount of weight of saying, if you, Jason Murphy, have not bought Skyrim by now, chances are you're not going to.
Okay.
But if I was able to let you play my copy of Skyrim, then you might play it and go, you know what, that was really fucking good. Like, maybe the next time that Bethesda releases something, I want to buy that, you know? Either that or you start to also reach this level of diminishing returns where you say, if the publisher is going to spend so much goddamn time keeping people from playing their games in relatively harmless ways, like you and I being friends on Steam and me playing a game and then giving it to you and then you getting to play the game, there's a better chance that it's going to do more for them than if I play the game, if I buy the game and I play the game and then you never play it because you're like, fuck that game and fuck that company and I don't want to spend $60 on it and go to hell. Like it's at a certain point, it makes more sense just to say you're garnering more goodwill with people by letting them have a little bit of freedom, and you're getting more eyes on your game than you would have otherwise. So you may not be getting all the money, but you may be getting people interested in your company. You may be getting people interested in your game. Is that if you take this just fucking super tight-ass approach of just like, no, everybody must pay $60 for every copy of our game ever, then eventually you're going to get people who are just like, fuck you, man. You're greedy as shit. Like, you don't give a shit about me. All you give a shit about is your bottom line. And at a certain point, as a consumer, you just go, I don't want to have anything to do with that asshole. Like, because they obviously just don't care about anything. It's part of the reason that I see people seem to think that EA is such a shitty company, is because they have you get the impression from a lot of their stuff that all they care about is how much money they can wring out of you, not whether you're having a good time or whether, you know, that sort of thing.
How dare you? How dare you accuse them of any such thing? They're all about candy and puppies and the family values.
I mean, it was like, you remember the whole SimCity debacle, right? Where they were just like, no, it has to be online, and everybody everybody who was online who reads game stuff and was following this whole fucking hot mess was like, there's a guy and he hacked the code and he took it offline and it runs exactly the fucking same. You guys are lying. Like, look, here's a video that shows that your whole it's got to be online is bullshit. And you can keep saying that, but we now know that you're just straight up lying. It doesn't have to be online. You just want to sell more copies. And then you get to a certain point where when a publisher pushes that to a certain point where you engender enough bad will with people where they're just like, well, then fuck, like, I don't care. You know, you've got to do shit like EA did where they gave me a free game. I got to play SimCity 4 because I bought the latest SimCity, Jason. And I'll tell you what, SimCity 4 is really fun. I think you should totally play SimCity 4.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole, I don't know. It's like, you bring up SimCity, and that launch was a debacle, to say the least.
We need more synonyms for words like debacle and train wreck.
Clusterfuck. It's a good one. Boondoggle. There's another one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, in that case, I think it's safe to assume that the launch of the Xbox One would be the same thing.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Microsoft's got data centers and shit that are a little bit bigger. For the Xbox One, for me, it was more like the first day that comes out, you're going to have some group of people who are going to immediately take it apart and try to figure out ways to spoof the online checks and hack it and get rid of it, and make it work offline. All the while, you're also still going to have the same bad will from people. But I don't know, the whole Steam thing and the question that you had, to me, just comes back to the thing that we've been saying for a while that says, like, if you just make a good game, people will buy it. They won't go out of their way to try to steal it. They'll be like, oh, man, I heard that Last of Us game is really good. I really want to play it. I'm going to go buy it. I'm going to wait for my friend to get done with it because I want to play it right now. You know, I'm not doing anything this weekend. I'm off of work. Like, it's real hot outside. I want to play that Last of Us game, so I'm going to buy it. Or, like we've talked about with Skyrim, is if you make a good game, if you spend time making a quality product and you don't try to, like, sand off the edges and pass off last year's game or just some repackaged crap, people will go buy your game and they will say good things about it.
Yes.
And they will like to play it.
And yeah, sometimes it is, I think a lot of times it is just that simple.
Yeah.
It's like,
just make a good game.
Make a good game, and that's what you need.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah. There you go. All right, we fixed the game industry.
You're welcome.
All right, well, we got a couple. Ooh, man, we're probably going to go a little bit long today. We got a couple of quick things that I want to go over just in regards to Rage Select website. So, and then we're going to take a few emails, and then we're going to be out of here. So let's get over this site news stuff real fast. First and foremost, Jason, you need to jump in with me on this. We would like to address the fine folks who have requested that we do a full playthrough of The Last of Us.
Too long. No.
And
moving on.
It's what I wanted to say to them is that, a lot of times the comedy that we get from doing these playthroughs comes when we first play them, because we're like when we played BioShock Infinite and we saw that, the first time that dude gets the freaking skyhook to the face, that was like a genuine, just like, what? Oh,
yes.
Which is not something that you would have gotten if we'd already seen it. Is part of I think the joy that we get out of recording these videos is because just like you watching them, we're seeing all this stuff for the very first time. So for The Last of Us, we recorded those videos, and then Jason and I sat down and played through the entire game, which is like 14 hours long. And I can't think of anything that sounds more boring to me than going right back and playing the game a second time, because we play it and we review it, and then just to go back right after we're done with it. The story is fresh in your mind. All the twists and turns of the plot are just right there in your brain. It just doesn't. I mean, I don't know. We've never tried it before, but Jason, it just doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think we're going to have the same passion for it, and also too long.
Yeah, it's also pretty long. Also, it should be noted that we've been kind of teasing about this, but in about 2 weeks, maybe at RTX, there might be something. You might be getting some news. So for the moment, we're not going to, on our Saturday playthroughs, we're not going to commit at the moment to anything. We're not going to do Portal 2 anymore because it's just too goddamn hard to make jokes and solve analytical puzzles at the same time.
Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it.
It's like you can feel the two sides of your brain. It's like your consciousness is like this pinball that has to move between both sides of your brain. And as you start getting more and more into solving puzzles, you just can't make jokes anymore. You're just like, I don't know, the penises, I guess, or something. And then
dicks.
And then as soon as that pinball moves back over to the joke part, and you're like, your mother's a whore. It's just like you're incapable of solving puzzles at all. It was something that I was excited about, and I thought, hey, we didn't play that. It's been a while since we played Portal, but we're probably going to throw in the towel on that one just because you guys don't seem to be having as good a time watching it. We're not really having as much of a good time playing it. And to be frank, we have the power to be able to do whatever the fuck we want to now. So.
Yes. So, sorry, Portal. You're a great game. We just can't play you and be funny at the same time.
Right. And as far as a full playthrough of The Last of Us, that's not in the cards. Plus, you know what? Back in our old life, we would get this thing where every week, for every game we played, there was one person who wanted us to do a full playthrough of that game.
That's true. With all of them.
With all of them. I mean, it was always a different person, but it'd be like, oh my God, you guys should play Sniper V2 all the way to the end. Or, oh my God, you guys should play Scribblenauts all the way to the end. Or, oh my God, you guys should play Inversion all the way to the end. And it was just like, oh God, no. But we've got plans to roll that stuff out. We're still kind of gearing up for a few different things. So keep an eye on the site for that stuff. But we're not going to do that right now. Second, this is just something that I'm going to put out there. I really appreciate. I think we both really appreciate the amount of support you guys have given us. We've had this thing up for like a month now, and we've got a hell of a lot of content. We've got a hell of a lot of just enthusiastic responses. People seem to really like what's going on here. We're hoping to roll out some new features on the site for you this week sometime. But the one thing that we're kind of a little bit backed up on right now is that we're getting a lot of hits on our YouTube channel. We're getting very much fewer hits on the website. So from here on out, we're going to kind of take a slightly different tack to the way that the videos are put up. They're still going to be on the YouTube channel. They're just going to be delayed by 24 hours. We're going to put them on the website. You can watch them on the website. They're just going to be unlisted YouTube. Like it's kind of like the game industry that we're talking about. If you guys really have some kind of mat on and you just super need to watch this stuff on YouTube in the YouTube player, it's going to be pretty easy for you to get around it. They're still going to be hosted on YouTube. But I just wanted to ask, if you could come to the website, you could watch the videos there. It's still going to be the same YouTube player. More hits to that is what's going to allow us to basically have the credibility later on to do more things. Like when it comes to registering for E3, the first thing that the ESA looks at is how many hits your website gets. So while I would love to do all this off just one YouTube channel, if the website gets fewer hits and the YouTube channel gets all the hits, then we may not have enough hits to be able to justify going to E3 or whatever. And so, if this is met with some kind of overwhelming, like, fucking pitchforks, you're the new Don, Jeff is the new Don Matrick, get him! Then I guess we'll roll it back. But I mean, I think that our site's pretty well laid out, and we've got a pretty decent comment system. We've got all the YouTube videos the same as they are on YouTube. It totally works on your cell phone because it's such an awesome website. Like it'll make you breakfast and all kinds of awesome stuff. So yeah, that's just going to be a change we're going to try out next week. So you can keep up with the YouTube channel. Everything's going to be 24-hour delayed, but we're going to try to bring the stuff out on the site first. So hopefully you guys can come and hang out with us there. Third, people have been asking a lot, Jason, for us to do a spoiler cast for The Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really know that we have enough to talk about.
I know
when it comes to, because it's a pretty basic story that is executed very well, and I think that what most of you guys are really asking us to talk about, and before we go on, there will be no spoilers here. No spoilers. We're going to talk around this in very generalized terms. A lot of you are asking us about what we thought about the very end of the game narratively. I thought it fit fine, and it was great.
Yeah. I thought it was. I thought it fit with the development of the characters, and as a result, it revealed them to be some of the most fully fleshed out, best written characters in video games ever.
I mean, I can kind of understand there have been a lot of people who have had issues with the way that the ending is, and I understand. Like, you guys who have seen the ending, you're going to know what I'm talking about. You guys that haven't, I'm going to be vague enough, but I understand why you have a problem with the ending. I think I understand what you may have wanted out of the ending, but I think that given the tone of the story and the characterization of the characters, that any more after that changing the ending in any way would have kind of changed the tone of the game towards the end, and I liked where it ended. I understand the issues that you guys are probably having with it are the same issues that I had, like when it happened, like when the minute that happened, that the game ended, I was just like, oh, okay, and then I thought about it for 5 minutes and was like, yeah, oh, all right, that works.
That was good. It wasn't your typical video game ending, but I thought it was very fitting, and yeah, it was. It was funny because it makes you want that, but then you realize, well, I don't want to get too far into it. I can't.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah, there's really not all that much to talk about.
I don't think so. I mean, if you guys really, 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 really want one, I guess we can make one. But to be honest, I mean, outside of just the ending, I thought the rest of the narrative of the game had some interesting points in it, but nothing so deep or complicated that it needs talking about. Like the story for The Last of Us is very much, somebody had even said, I think we've mentioned this in a review, that somebody had said that it was a very rote kind of zombie end of the world story, and it kind of is. It's just executed in a very, very personal manner that makes it a really deep connection with the characters, so that even though the things that are happening to the characters in a lot of cases are kind of your standard zombie apocalypse tropes, you get so emotionally invested with them that those tropes have more impact even though you've seen them before. Kind of like the Walking Dead game, where the stuff you're seeing just from a simple narrative storytelling structure is not like, it's not brand new. It's not something you've never seen before. It's mostly, all these things are kind of a story of survival in this harsh environment. But it's just handled, it's crafted in such a good way that you have a closer emotional connection with the game than you would with another of the same story that had shittier characters. So.
Precisely. Yeah. I mean, really, and that's where it really shows its strength. Not in so much the story or the plot or anything, but so many apocalypse movies are about how the characters deal with it on a personal level, and of course then there's a lot of oh, we're the real monsters here, and this is no exception. This just does it better.
It's more subtle. It's less in your face about the man is the real monster. So yeah, we're probably not going to do that unless you guys. I mean, I swear, if you go into the comments, if every one of you guys want to hear us talk for 20 or 30 minutes about this, we could probably do it. But I just don't think there's going to be a lot of new information that you haven't already gotten.
Come to RTX.
Yeah.
And talk to us.
Sit down with a beer with us.
Yeah.
All right. Last up on the site news, we need a background, you guys. Like, we got that Last of Us background there. It's starting to get a little stale, a little moldy. And we've kind of been back and forth about doing this stuff. Is we've been working so much that we haven't really had time for art, and that sort of thing isn't really my forte as an artist anyway. So we had this brand new idea, and I'm going to put up a blog post maybe on Tuesday of this week to kind of give you guys a place to land this stuff, where if you're an artist and you feel like you want to make us a web background, a background for the website, we want to crowdsource this bitch because we're busy putting together a billion other things. So we want to give you guys an opportunity to contribute if you feel like you can by making a background for the website, and that we are going to pick I need to kind of go over some of the specifics, but what I'd like to do is if we get enough good entries, we'd like to pick some of the best entries and then just rotate them every couple, every month or every couple months throughout the rest of the year on the website. So I don't know. You guys let us know in the comments what you think about that. Like, I think it'd be a good opportunity for people to, show their chops and us to get a cool background.
And we get not just capable, but really good submissions all the time. Just not necessarily something we needed or could use, but stuff we really enjoyed, Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is one where, this is something we need. So, and we also probably should put up on the website, how they can submit it and what the specs need to be.
Yes, I will get all that stuff together in a post. But if you guys want to start working on it, I mean, just look at you look at other websites and you realize we need something that's going to go back there. We generally tend to be using orange and reds and yellows as our colors. It's got to be something that is kind of cool looking, but it can't be overly if it's forcing your eye away from the center of the website. That's not a good thing. I don't know. You guys who are familiar with the stuff, you know what we're talking about. A repeating texture or something that's very nice and classy and looks great. Because this is the classiest website on the entire goddamn internet.
Damn right.
All right. So, all right. Got all that shit out of the way. Let's read some emails, Jason.
Okay. What fresh new hell do you have for us today?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 emails. But we don't have to read all of them.
Okay, so,
good. The first one is from is an oldie but a goodie from our friend Deacon Frost. Good evening, Murder and Murphy and the Bearded Wonder. Do you have a game that you like but normally wouldn't have even tried it if it weren't for your job? Long live the Ladyboy Tequila Slaves, Deacon Frost. P.S. Jeff, I also use an inverted y-axis and take constant shit about it from my friends as well. So you are not alone, brothers. Stay strong. Did I mention, Jason, that at E3, half the games did not have an option to be able to invert the y-axis? And just constantly it feels like crazy. And that's just,
and you just kept trying to turn stuff over, but it was all too heavy. So you're like, fuck this. Fuck. Whatever.
Just whatever, man. So I don't know. What do you think? You have a game that you've been forced to play that you ended up liking? That you
I'm sure. I'm trying to think of one. Probably, probably a bunch of DLC stuff like Bastion, for instance. Mm-hmm. That was a good one that I don't know that I ever would have sought out and played. Castle Storm. There's another one.
Oh, yeah?
Mostly download stuff.
But before we started looking at that stuff, where you just kind of, I mean, I know that I was too, of the opinion it's just like, oh man, this is just a bunch of garbage. You know, they're just releasing the shovelware every week for $15. Fuck those games.
Yeah, because for the longest time, stuff like that was in fact garbage.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
and now we're actually getting quality stuff that's being released as as a download only game. But yeah, for the longest time it was just stinky. But now that's kind of like, okay, if I want innovation or something like that, that's where I go. I go online.
I think for me it was probably Halo 4. I've avoided the Halo series like the plague, never had any real business with it. I had a really good time with Halo 4 in spite of myself, and I would never have played that. That would not have been the sort of thing that I would even remotely have gone near if I didn't have to. So that was one of the ones that really surprised me. And some of the stuff, I agree with you on the download stuff. Some of the stuff, I mean, I remember, I think the first game that I really wanted to play that was a download game was Shadow Complex. I'm a whore for Metroidvania games. But then, we started covering, like, I think that back in the old days, when I first started taking over the podcast, like, I was very nervous in the beginning, and I always remembered the first Summer of Arcade that we covered in, like, 2011 was where you and Kevin, I feel, really got a good, like, rhythm going for podcasting. Because we had to play all these games kind of in a row, and they were all very lightweight, and there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't like, oh my god, it's BioShock, you better get this right, motherfucker. You better not say that there's a saw blade gun, because then a million people in the comments will be like, there's no saw blade gun, you fucking asshole. It was just, hey, it's Toy Soldiers, hey, it's Bastion, hey, I really like all these games, and I probably would never have played them otherwise. There's a lot of games like that where my game playing habits have been altered over the years, just having tried to keep up with all the games that come out. Like, there was a time where there was a time before I started doing this when I would have never in a million years even thought about buying something like Hotline Miami. I would have just been like, dude, that looks weird. Fuck that game.
Yeah, you think it's like a joke game or something like that.
Yeah. Or Surgery Simulator. I would never have thought about it. I'd be like, what? No, fuck yourself.
Yeah. And a lot of times we find ourselves playing stuff like for a Let's Play because it's bad or crazy or would make for, it's something we wouldn't play by ourselves, but it would make for a good time while we're recording, So, we've run into a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. No, this was a little, okay, I'm going to go on here. We've got our next one is from James, and in parentheses he has Slippery Triple. I don't know if that's his website name or what. I usually have to pay extra for the Slippery Triple, but this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Microsoft. It's been a very Microsoft-oriented news cycle for the last few weeks here. But I thought this was an interesting question. Microsoft has backpedaled on their internet connection check-in and the use of disk-based games. However, they made it very clear that with the unveiling of the Xbone that they wanted to cater to game publishers and their issue with used game sales. What is to stop them from turning this DRM back on in 2 or 3 years from now when people have Xbones in their home? Honestly, nothing. I doubt they would because of the amount. I mean,
massive public backlash.
Yeah, I mean, but it becomes the sort of thing where if we talked about it before, where if they think that they can get away with it, I don't know. I don't know what's to stop them from doing that. Like, if they get a huge installed base and they say, all right, we got them now, like, fucking cut that switch on. Because the EULAs that you have to accept before you can turn the console on or whatever the first time, nobody ever reads that fucking 25-page thing. It's like, yeah,
right.
Your children belong to us, and you can't own shoes anymore, and you've got to buy all your cheese from Microsoft, and it's like, I don't care. I just want to play Halo. I want to play Halo.
Man,
fuck you.
Microsoft has been trying really hard to get into the fucking cheese market.
It's that Gouda
next.
That they got it's not very good. It's not very good. I'm just telling you right now. I honestly don't think. I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't think that. I honestly don't think that they would be that stupid after right now after they just got kind of slapped around and they've rolled some of these policy things back. I don't think that they have. If they spend the next few years engendering enough goodwill with people, they might be able to turn it on and have a bunch of people flock to their side when people are like, fuck them. But right now, I don't feel like they have enough goodwill to be able to do that, to pull that some shit like that without people getting really pissed off at them. So I don't know. I mean, what if? That's an interesting question. What would you do, Jason, if that happened to you? What if say the PlayStation 4 in 2 years flipped the switch and they said, "Hey, guess what? It's all that Microsoft shit, but now it's on the PlayStation."
What could
4.
you do? Really?
You throw your PlayStation 4 out the window into a burning pile of refuse and feces and just,
They already have your money,
Right. But the thing is that if they have your money, but if they turn that shit on and then the attach rate that they get for software goes to 0, like if they turn that on, the only reason let's be fair here. Microsoft, Sony, they don't give a shit about this stuff. I mean, they give some of a shit, but EA and Activision and Ubisoft, they're the ones who give a shit about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones impacted by used games. Sony and Microsoft, I mean, why do they care? Like, what the fuck do they care? They put out a few games every year that generally tend to do decent. Like, what do they give a fuck if you're buying Call of Duty from GameSpot or you're buying Call of Duty from their store, they're buying Call of Duty from wherever. I mean, they should probably get a percentage, but in the long run, I think it's better for them they want to sell consoles. That it's really the publishers who give a shit about this. So if Sony is like, all right, we'll turn that shit on, and then suddenly nobody will buy an EA game on a PlayStation anymore, then congratulations, your plan has had the exact opposite effect of what you wanted it to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it's. I don't think they can necessarily get away with that.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they can do it, but, and again, I think it would be a PR nightmare, and for a company like Sony or Microsoft, that is clearly very important.
I would just want to see Jack Tretton sitting in front of like the U.S. Senate in one of those like the Enron style hearings or whatever, where he's like, the lawyer whispers, it's like, I can't answer that at this time. I don't recall.
Yeah.
I don't recall. All right, let's get on to this next question. Ooh, we're running along. This is from Josh. Hey, guys, love the show. Keep up the great work. This is more of a personal question for Jeff. It seems like you generally take the viewpoint of letting the market correct itself. If big companies like Microsoft and EA go too far, consumers will correct them by not buying their product. Do you consider yourself a libertarian? And if so, do you feel the gaming industry will ever become so monopolistic that gamers will lose their ability to choose? I know it's a convoluted question. Thanks, Josh. Josh, it's not necessarily that I think that the market will correct itself. It's that I don't think we have any choice except to let the market correct itself. I don't think that anybody's going to step in on the side of consumers. I mean, Jason.
Yeah, Ralph Nader's going to put on his cape and fly in and set things right?
I mean, like, honestly, it seems that more and more often we're seeing that it seems like, especially with like the Xbox One thing until they reversed it, we were talking about earlier, it seems like they dictate these terms and they don't give a shit. Somebody at I've heard this before, that somebody at Microsoft before they did this Xbox One thing crunched some market numbers and said, we're going to lose X% of our customers because they're just going to have a knee-jerk reaction to this. They're going to say, fuck you. But we're going to make X% more because everybody's going to be buying games at full price instead of used games. Publisher kickbacks are going to go up by this amount. And that those numbers, at the end of the day, some economist probably was like, it's going to be better for us in the long term. Yes, we're going to lose some face and we're going to lose some customers, but we're going to make that up in sales in the long term. So fuck them. But yeah, I don't really consider myself a libertarian. I don't like getting into politics because I have problems with everybody. You know me, Jason. I'm a cranky old man. I complain about anything. I'm just like, man,
it's true. He is.
Democrats and Republicans. I remember when it was just to shoot people and yes.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that anarchy is the answer. So that's how disenfranchised I am.
But you know what? To his last question of, do you feel the gaming industry will ever become so monopolistic that gamers will lose their ability to choose? I honestly think the answer to that question is firmly and completely in the hands of those gamers. If people stop buying things, then the industry will have to react. Like, they can create a fully closed system where nobody can ever pirate a game, nobody can ever buy a used game, and everything's going to be full price. It's going to cost $99 for every game that comes out. The thing is that eventually you will push people to a point where they're just like, fuck you. I'm just going to buy a PC, and I'm going to play $15 games on Steam. Or fuck you. I'm going to buy an iPhone, and I'm going to play $2 iPhone games because I'm not going to spend $70 just to get in this restrictive box that you have made with all of this bullshit where I'm treated like a an asshole the entire time. And that it's also one of the great things about I hadn't even thought about it until recently about watching Microsoft and Sony going back to back, that the only reason that the Xbox One is not doing what they're doing is because Sony decided to come out and fuck them with it.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that if they were completely aligned and in collusion with each other, then we might have something to worry about. We should also consider that that's never going to happen. It's good that these two clearly hate each other and want to fuck each other.
Yeah, because we are the ones who benefit from that. Because when the only reason that the PlayStation 4 is $100 less than the Xbox One is because Xbox had their press conference, and there was a bunch of guys over at Sony who were like, oh man, we're gonna fuck the shit out of them. We're gonna fuck them like prison.
Yeah. As soon as Microsoft had their thing that morning, Sony was like, all right, activate the Gemini protocols. And that was that.
Well, I mean, go back and watch the press conference when Jack Tretton comes out to say all that stuff. Like, it must have been like one of the greatest moments of his life to be able to go up there, and he didn't ever say Microsoft. He didn't ever directly say and fuck Don Matrick, fuck him right in his dumb ass. Like, he didn't have to say that. He just came out and was like, you can buy used games. And I swear, you see the crowd reactions to that. People were just like, it was like watching the Beatles. They were just like, oh yeah, fucking woo. He basically came out on stage and said, everybody, we're doing the same thing we've always done. And everyone's just like, oh, fuck yeah, the same as ever. Whoa! Which, I mean, they weren't doing anything different that they've done before. Like, essentially the PS4 is a PS3, but with better hardware, better support, and better, indie games type of stuff. They got the sharing. But for the most part, it's not a radically different system than a PlayStation 3. And yet, he came out there and said that, and you had people who jumped up on their feet to applaud, to give him a standing ovation for coming out to say, we are not changing the way this industry works. And that's a very interesting thing to look at. I don't know.
It was bold. Mm-hmm. It was really well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I think they kind of knew based on just the smile on Tretton's face that they're like, all right, we got your ass. Before he even opened his mouth, And
then that commercial that they put out that was just like, it's funny that none of it, I mean, I love how passive aggressive the whole Sony campaign was, is that the commercial that they made about how used games are going to work on the PlayStation 4. He just hands the guy the game and he's like, thanks. And that's it. I love the fact that that's such a fucking, it's just such a fucking fuck you to Microsoft without ever being shitty about it. They're just kind of like, yeah, we get to do this now. And even though Microsoft has now turned around to get to kind of be in the same place that Sony is, I will never forget that commercial, Jason.
Oh, I know.
That was so, I mean, just oh man, you guys, you're hitting below the belt this time.
One of the greatest things ever.
Oh, all right. Well, we got a couple more questions here. Let's see here. I'm going to skip over this one. We kind of talked this one to death, but hell, I'm going to read it anyway. This is from Vincent. Hello, he says, I read an article in which David Cage said games need to innovate or die. I think he has some good points, but I'm interested in games that do not really innovate but could be fun, such as Shadow Warrior and Destiny. Do you think games need to innovate more? Keep up the good work.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm kind of of two minds about it. Like, I think that there's definitely a case to be made for when you take a gameplay style that is established and you just do it better than anybody has done it before. Like, I love me some Metroidvania games, and I love playing whenever there's a new one that comes out, as long as people are doing them pretty well. I think the problem with innovation these days is that I don't know, Jason, do you get the same feeling that I do? That we're like it seems like as gamers we're becoming much more ornery than we used to be.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that we don't like change as much, that it's like, no, keep it the way it's always been.
Yeah, and sometimes you just want a hamburger. So, yeah, I mean, innovation is happening, and again, it's happening in the indie market more than anything else, which is good. I think that is good and necessary. But maybe all games don't need to do that because, again, sometimes you just need some familiarity.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's a sort of thing where, exactly what you just said. The indie game market, they can do experimental stuff that may end up getting picked up by the mainstream market eventually, plugged into their games or whatever. But yeah, like you said, sometimes you just you just want to play some Call of Duty. Like I know a lot of people don't like Call of Duty anymore, and I haven't played it in a while, but. Sometimes you just want to play a third-person action game that you don't really have to think much about. You just be like, oh, man, that ship blows up. You want to play Mercenaries,
Yeah, right. Sometimes you just want to, play some sort
of... Or Saints Row.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nothing new. It's just crazy.
Yeah. All right, and one more. This one actually kind of just leads into something else I wanted to talk about a little bit, and then we're going to be done. Hey guys, my name is Tal. Weird name, right? Oh, I don't know.
Whatever.
I've seen weirder. I've been a long-time listener. My question is, since you guys have left, have you had any restrictions lifted? What I'm trying to say is, can you do things that you previously were not allowed to do now that you're on Rage Select? Thanks for reading, Tal.
Yes.
Yes.
Now here's what we do. Whatever the fuck we want.
Yes, but what I kind of wanted to use this as a way to talk to everybody about is that while we are allowed to do whatever we want to, like I had said before, we're gearing up to go to RTX, but after RTX, kind of like we've all been talking about, or kind of like I've been talking about and you've been talking about for a long time, Jason, in the future, in the coming months after RTX, some of what we do and what we don't do is probably going to be directly related to hits and how much money we can get because we are making no money right now.
Yeah, and again, we don't have any. I'm not expecting a dump truck full of money and pussy and cocaine to just dump it all out on my front steps.
Speak for yourself, man. I'm waiting for that dump truck. I got a cone set up and everything.
You just keep waiting. But yeah, it's like we're not expecting to get rich off of this, but. There is a level of sustainability that requires an influx of money. So, yeah, it's like, we'll be able to keep this site afloat one way or the other. It's just how much time are we going to be able to contribute? And that's directly proportional to the cash we do or do not have coming in. So we're going to be focusing on that quite a bit.
And we've got some crazy new stuff coming up that you guys don't even know. You don't even know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But see, it's the sort of thing where we've built this site to a point now where if for whatever reason, like say, because I get a little bit of time, a little bit of money saved up that we can do this for a little while without really bringing in too much income. But by a couple of months or so after RTX, we're going to need to be to at least a place where some amount of money is coming in, or eventually, if the whole thing crashes and burns. We could still do this shit on the weekends. We've been doing this for a year now. We've got so many videos. It is old hat.
Yeah.
It is old dusty hat. We just turn that shit on and go. It doesn't even matter. We could crank out 4 or 5 videos a week without any problem. They probably come at a much less lower frequency than they do now. Because I wouldn't have all the time in the world because I'd have to go get a job. I don't want to get a job, Jason. I want to do this. I love doing this. I love playing video games and making videos and talking with you and stuff like that. I love it. So I want to do that.
It's all right.
Well, at least until you become a big shot Hollywood hotshot. But when you make all of your Robert Cargill money, you have to send me a dump truck full of blowing hookers.
Oh yeah, no, that's there will be mantis ladies and transsexuals and
right. Grandmas.
Gold coins that's actually chocolate.
Hot grandmas.
Hot grandmas. Loretta might be there.
Actually, I was going to say they don't even know who Loretta is, but Loretta, you guys will know who Loretta is by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Tal, to your question, there's a certain part of me that like eventually we're going to have to turn on a video camera and step in front of it because we don't have a stable full of artists. But we're going to try to give you guys the opportunity to help us out with these crowdsourcing things. And we're going to try to get as much of this stuff rolling. I mean, I think that for a website that's been open for a month, we're doing pretty good, Jason.
Yeah,
pretty good.
It is kicking our collective ass, but we have put out a lot of content.
This is very true. So that's about it. But you know what? We can't do these, and we're focusing a little bit less on emails than we are on some news and kind of BSing and stuff like that. But if you want to get your email in, I'll tell you right now, you could send it to rageselect@gmail.com. Do not send it to admin@rageselect.com. This has been happening recently. Like, if you want to send me a suggestion or you want to, have a conversation, I do read all the emails that come in. I don't really respond to very many of them, but I do read every email and every comment on the website, even though, oh my God, those comments. Like, it was so much easier when we were just one part of another website, but now it's just like, I got to get a cheeseburger and I come home and it's like, 150 new comments, huh? Well, I was going to watch True Blood, but all right, let's get started here. You're gay, your mom is gay, you're gay, your dog is gay, everybody's gay. Okay, cool. Thanks, YouTube. So anyway, if you have a question, send it to rageselect@gmail.com. We're going to have a different address coming up pretty soon, but for right now, that is what we're going to do. And my dog just came up and started looking at me like it's time to go for walkies, so we gotta take it easy. Jason, thank you as always for coming on.
And thanks for having me. Yes, you guys come to RTX and see us. It's in just a couple of weeks. So if you don't already have your tickets, you're kind of screwed. But yeah, you can come out and still hang out afterwards anyway.
Yep, we're going to have we're going to be at a lot of the Spill after party stuff, so you can find us all around. I would say at this moment, like, the best way to figure out where all this stuff is you friends us on Facebook and on the Twitters and such. And, the Sparkle Fandango ladies are setting some things up, and our friends over at Lounge Geeks are setting some things up, and there's a lot of different things happening. So, if you hook up all of the social media junks and you put them into the thing on your phone that tells you all of the things, that eventually you will see the thing where it's like, here's where we're going to get real drunk. And I'm not getting as drunk at RTX as I was in LA. No shots. No shots at RTX.
You saying that pretty much guarantees people are going to buy you shots.
No, well, you can buy them all you want to, and I'm going to make a little castle out of them.
I will drink the shots.
Okay. Well, everybody, we will see you in a week for another episode of Rage Select Podcast. I don't know what the fuck it's called.